What if the world's greatest symbol of freedom was reborn as its ultimate weapon of control? In this dark, alternative ending story, Captain America isn't rescued by S.H.I.E.L.D., but by Hydra. Brainwashed, reprogrammed, and reborn as the perfect soldier. The man who once fought for liberty now enforces tyranny, a world without hope, a hero without a soul. Get ready to witness what would happen if Steve Rogers became Hydra's greatest creation, the Captain Hydra. One of the most epic, chilling, and unexpected Marvel what-if stories. Now take a deep breath, and let's go. Beneath the endless white of the Arctic, silence rules. The wind howls across the frozen wasteland, carrying whispers of a war long ended. Somewhere beneath miles of ancient ice, a heartbeat waits, faint, forgotten but unbroken. The world believes the hero is gone. The war is over. But history has a cruel habit of being rewritten by those who dare to dig too deep. For 70 years, the body of Captain America has remained entombed in ice, perfectly preserved, a relic of another age. A man who sacrificed everything to save a world that moved on without him. His name became legend, his shield became myth, and his story became a symbol of courage humanity could aspire to, but never reach again. Yet while one world mourned the man, another hunted the myth. Far beneath the ruins of post-war Europe, Hydra endured. Not as an army, but as an idea, one that could never die, only adapt. Decades after their supposed extinction, fragments of Hydra operated in silence, hidden in governments, corporations, and laboratories the world forgot existed. And it was in one such shadow that a signal was intercepted, a faint trace of organic life beneath the Arctic ice. While S.H.I.E.L.D. satellites marked it as geological interference, Hydra saw something else: salvation. Their ships cut through the frozen seas, their lights piercing the darkness below. And there, entombed in blue crystal, they found him. The face of their greatest enemy, perfectly preserved, suspended between life and death, Steve Rogers. To S.H.I.E.L.D., he would have been a hero to revive. To Hydra, he was an unfinished experiment. They extracted the body with precision, whispering to one another as if they feared waking a god. They brought him to a remote facility in the mountains of Eastern Europe, hidden behind storms and propaganda. There, Hydra's scientists gathered, men who once served the Red Skull, and others who believed his dream still lived on. Machines hummed. Needles sank deep. The ice melted away. The man beneath did not look like a corpse. His skin was still firm, his pulse weak but present. The super soldier serum had preserved him far beyond nature's grasp. His heart began to beat, slowly, reluctantly. And when his eyes finally opened, the world he awoke to was not the one he died for. The first thing he saw was not sunlight, but the crimson insignia of Hydra. Not freedom, but control. They surrounded him, speaking words that meant nothing, but carried the weight of command. His memories came in fragments, bullets, fire, the face of a friend falling through the sky, the pain of loss, the sound of his own scream as he went down with the plane. Then, nothing. They told him he had been betrayed, that S.H.I.E.L.D. had abandoned him, that the world he fought for had been consumed by greed and corruption, that Hydra alone sought to rebuild it, to bring order from chaos. Lies, layered upon lies, whispered into his fragile mind until truth itself began to rot. Under the guidance of Dr. Arnim Zola's preserved digital consciousness, Hydra began the reconstruction. Nanites infused his bloodstream, rewriting the pathways of his mind. Hypnotic signals buried deep within the hum of machines reshaped his beliefs. Every night they played recordings, false memories of a world that needed control, not freedom. A world that needed him to lead, not protect. Steve Rogers, the soldier, became Steve Rogers, the instrument. He trained again. His movements perfect, efficient, mechanical. Hydra pushed him to his limits, measuring every heartbeat, every ounce of hesitation. They crafted a new uniform, dark as the void, with a new emblem burned into the chest, a skull replacing the star. His shield, once gleaming red, white, and blue, was reforged, black steel trimmed in red, no longer a symbol of protection, but of dominance. To the world, Captain America remained a memory. To Hydra, he became a weapon. They called him the Captain Hydra. He moved like a ghost, striking unseen. Entire bases fell before anyone realized who led the assault. Governments collapsed, resistance movements disappeared overnight, and whispers spread across continents of a soldier without mercy, a man with a shield marked by fear. Those who saw him and lived called him the fallen star. Others said he was a myth, a nightmare told to those who dared to dream of rebellion. And yet, within him, something flickered, small, fragile. The faint memory of laughter in a dance hall, the echo of a promise never kept, Peggy Carter's smile, the warmth of sunlight on a Brooklyn street. These ghosts haunted the corners of his mind, fragments of the man he once was, buried beneath programming too deep to erase. But Hydra knew how to silence ghosts. Every time Steve hesitated, they reminded him. They replayed the crash, the fire, the loss, the betrayal. They made him believe. They replaced hope with purpose, compassion with duty. They took the heart of a hero and made it beat for them. And yet, somewhere in the darkness of his mind, Captain America still whispered to himself, "I can do this all day." But the man who said those words no longer knew what they meant. The world believed it had lost its hero. In truth, it had created its destroyer. The world slept while the storm gathered. Across continents, governments grew complacent, tangled in bureaucracy, blind to the whispers that echoed beneath their very foundations. Hydra had learned from its failures, learned that domination does not begin with armies, but with control. Silent, invisible, methodical control. And now they had their champion. The first appearance of the Captain Hydra came in the dead of winter, deep within the borders of a small European state torn by rebellion. A convoy carrying experimental weapons suddenly vanished from the radar. Soldiers on the ground reported seeing a man walking through the snow, alone, carrying a circular shield black as the night sky. They fired on him. None lived to tell what happened next. When rescue teams arrived, all they found were footprints leading away from the burning wreckage. No bodies, no survivors, just the smell of scorched metal and silence. At first, the world dismissed it as an act of terrorism, but then it happened again and again. Entire facilities wiped off the map with surgical precision, data erased, witnesses gone. Every operation shared the same signature: absolute efficiency, total anonymity, and the lingering presence of something human, but wrong. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s analysts began to connect the dots. The pattern of strikes followed old Hydra routes, long abandoned. Nick Fury's suspicions grew darker with every report. He sent agents to investigate, but they never returned. The last transmission captured only static and a distorted voice speaking in a calm, unwavering tone. "Hail, Hydra!" Then silence. In the years that followed, Hydra moved like a virus reborn. They infiltrated governments, banks, communication networks. Their symbol, once hidden, began appearing in graffiti, encrypted messages, whispers across dark corners of the internet. "The world needs order," they said. "The world needs the captain." And then, for the first time, he appeared on camera. A live broadcast hijacked every screen, every frequency, every signal across the planet. The image was simple. A figure standing in shadow, the shield gleaming red beneath dim light. When he spoke, the voice was calm, firm, unshakable. "You were promised freedom. But freedom breeds chaos. You were promised justice, yet corruption thrives. Hydra will bring balance. I will bring peace. The world will unite under one purpose." Governments called it propaganda. Citizens called it a warning. But those who saw his face, truly saw it, recognized something they could not accept. Steve Rogers. The man who once represented everything pure, now wearing the mark of tyranny. The world fell into disbelief. SHIELD denied it. The Avengers refused to believe it. Tony Stark watched the footage in silence, the glow of the screen reflecting in his eyes as he whispered, "That's not him. It can't be." But deep down, Tony knew the truth. The serum that made Steve special could not be faked. The movements, the posture, the voice, it was him, the real Captain America. Hydra used that disbelief to their advantage. Every country that questioned the video soon found itself under siege by chaos. Economic collapse, riots, cyber attacks. And when the people cried for order, Hydra offered salvation, and Steve led the assaults personally. He did not hesitate. He did not doubt. Every strike was perfect, quick, clean, decisive. He dismantled military networks, crushed resistance groups, and left behind cities trembling in awe of his efficiency. They called him the Black Captain, a man who moved faster than thought, who could silence entire armies with a single blow. And every time his shield struck, the echo of freedom's death rang across the world. Yet even as he conquered, a shadow grew within him. In the quiet moments between missions, he began to see faces, not of his enemies, but of those he once called friends. Bucky's grin, Sam's laugh, Peggy's eyes. They came to him like ghosts, whispering through the cracks of his programming. Sometimes, when he looked into the mirror, he didn't recognize the reflection. The man in the glass stared back with cold indifference, a weapon, not a soul. Hydra noticed his hesitation. Dr. Zola's AI monitored every neural pattern, every heartbeat. Whenever Steve's will faltered, the machine flooded his mind with false memories. Images of betrayal, of SHIELD abandoning him, of Hydra saving him from the ice. They told him he was chosen, that he was destined to fix a broken world. And for a while, he believed. But truth has a way of bleeding through lies, no matter how deep they are buried. During one mission, Steve infiltrated a rebel cell hidden in the ruins of Sokovia. Among the captives was an old man, frail but defiant. He refused to kneel, even as Steve's soldiers surrounded him. When the captain approached, the man looked him in the eyes and whispered, "I remember you. You fought for us." The words struck like a bullet. Steve froze, his mind split between past and present. He heard echoes of war, of comrades laughing in the mud, of a promise to protect the innocent. Hydra's voice screamed inside his head, commanding obedience. But the old man's voice was louder, human, real. For the first time, Captain Hydra hesitated to kill. Hydra's commanders saw the footage. They ordered a purge of the village. Steve obeyed, or at least pretended to. When the fires rose, he walked away without looking back, but something within him shifted. A fracture, a spark of defiance buried under years of control. That night, Steve dreamed, not of war, but of music. The sound of a 1940s band echoing through a dance hall, Peggy's voice saying, "Save a dance for me." He woke with tears on his face, and for the first time in decades he felt fear. Fear of himself. Fear of what he had become. Hydra celebrated his victories, crowning him their living weapon, their symbol of dominance. They broadcast his image across nations, replacing flags with his insignia. Statues rose in conquered cities. Children were taught to salute his name. Captain Hydra, they called him, the savior who brought peace through obedience. But peace built on control is only an illusion. Beneath the surface, resistance began to rise. Former SHIELD agents, defected soldiers, remnants of the Avengers, all gathering in secret. They called themselves the Remnant. Their leader was a man Steve once called Brother, Bucky Barnes. The Winter Soldier had seen too many ghosts to stay silent. When he learned what Hydra had done, when he saw the face of his best friend twisted into their puppet, something inside him snapped. He swore to bring Steve back or end him. And so, in the shadows of a broken world, a new war began. One not for territory, but for the soul of a man once called a hero. Now a legend reborn in darkness, a symbol no longer of freedom, but of control. The Captain Hydra ruled the world, but deep within him the real Steve Rogers, the man from Brooklyn, was waking up. The world had changed. Cities once bright with life now lived under banners of black and red. The Hydra emblem hung where flags once waved, their presence a reminder that freedom had a cost, and that cost had been paid in full. Order was absolute, surveillance omnipresent. People obeyed not out of faith, but out of fear, and at the center of it all stood him. Captain Hydra, the symbol of the new world, feared, worshipped, obeyed. His word was law, his shield, justice. He traveled the globe like a ghost, crushing rebellion before it could breathe. Nations surrendered before his arrival, terrified not by his power, but by the conviction in his eyes. He did not rage, he did not hate, he simply believed. Hydra called it peace. The rest of the world called it silence. But silence cannot last forever. Beneath the steel and obedience, the embers of rebellion still burned. They whispered in the alleys, in coded transmissions, in the hearts of those who remembered what freedom felt like. And in those whispers, one name rose above all others: Bucky Barnes. The Winter Soldier had seen enough. He had watched Hydra turn his brother into their puppet, watched the world bend under his command. But Bucky knew the truth buried deep inside the lies. He had seen Steve's eyes once, just once, during a Hydra parade in Berlin. For a single second, their gaze met across a crowd of millions, and Bucky swore he saw something human, something broken, trapped behind the steel-blue glare. That was enough. He began to gather survivors, remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D., defected Hydra agents and outlaws who refused to kneel. They hid in the ruins of old cities, striking Hydra's supply lines, sabotaging communication towers, freeing prisoners who still dared to resist. They became the remnant. Their message was simple: freedom is not dead. Every mission carried risk, every raid ended in blood, but Bucky never stopped. He carried with him the ghost of the man Steve used to be, the skinny kid from Brooklyn who never gave up. He fought not to win, but to remind the world that Captain America still existed, even if buried under Hydra's lies. And then, one night, the impossible happened. During an ambush in northern Europe, Hydra's elite troops cornered the remnant inside an abandoned factory. The battle was brutal: gunfire, explosions, screams echoing through metal corridors. Bucky fought like a man possessed, his metal arms shattering armor, his rage cutting through ranks. But when the last wall fell, when the dust cleared, he saw him, Steve, standing in the doorway, shield in hand, eyes cold as winter. For a long moment neither spoke. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Steve said quietly, "You shouldn't have come here." Bucky lowered his weapon. "Yeah," he muttered. "I could say the same to you." Steve's jaw tightened. "You're fighting for ghosts, Bucky. The world is safer now. No more war, no more chaos." "Safer?" Bucky stepped closer. "You call this safe? Look around you, Steve. People whisper your name like a curse. You think you saved the world, but you just put it in chains." For a moment, the faintest flicker crossed Steve's face. Confusion, maybe regret. But then the conditioning snapped back. His eyes went cold again. He raised his shield. "This world needs discipline." "And you need to wake the hell up," Bucky said, "because this isn't you." They clashed, shield against metal, brother against brother. The sound was thunderous, echoing through the ruins like the war itself had come back to life. Every strike carried history, every blow, memory. Steve fought with precision, perfect form, unrelenting power. Bucky fought with desperation, pain and love twisted into fury. At one point, Steve's shield struck Bucky's arm, sending sparks into the air. He pressed his advantage, knocking Bucky to the ground, holding the shield above him. "End this," Steve demanded. "Go ahead." Bucky spat, blood on his lips. "You already killed the man you were." The words hit like shrapnel. Steve hesitated. For just a heartbeat, his hand trembled. And in that heartbeat, Bucky saw it. The real Steve, buried, suffocating, but still alive. Bucky reached up, grabbing the edge of the shield, forcing Steve to look at him. "You're my friend," he whispered. "You're not Hydra." The past collided with the present. The train, the fall, the years of pain, the moments of brotherhood. Steve staggered back, eyes wide, memories flashing like lightning through his mind. Hydra's programming screamed inside his skull, trying to suppress it. The pain was unbearable. He roared, a sound torn between rage and agony, and slammed the shield into the ground, splitting concrete. The battle stopped. Hydra's troops hesitated, unsure what they were witnessing. Steve turned away, breathing heavily, trembling. He looked down at his reflection in the cracked surface of his shield, the skull symbol staring back at him. For the first time, he saw it for what it was, a mark of everything he'd destroyed. Bucky rose slowly, watching him. "Steve," he said softly, "you don't have to keep fighting for them." Steve didn't answer. He turned and walked into the shadows, leaving his troops behind. That night, the Hydra network fell silent. Orders went unanswered. Systems began to fail. The organization had lost its voice. But Hydra never dies easily. In hidden fortresses, the High Council gathered. Zola's digital consciousness, still guiding them from the mainframe, issued a single command: retrieve the captain. Recondition him. Permanently. Hydra unleashed everything. Armies, drones, assassins, all hunting Steve Rogers, the man who had once been their perfect weapon. But the Captain Hydra they built no longer obeyed. He disappeared. No one knew where. Rumors spread through the underground of a figure in black destroying Hydra bases from within. Some said it was the Remnant. Others whispered it was him, cleansing his own sins. The world was shifting again, the balance between order and freedom breaking apart. And somewhere in the ruins of the old world, two men, brothers by war, divided by destiny, prepared for the reckoning that would decide the future of mankind. Because if Hydra had created a god, then that god was about to turn against his creators. The world trembled beneath the weight of its own creation. Hydra's empire, built on fear and obedience, began to crack from within. Communications failed, leaders vanished, and their perfect weapon, their captain, had turned into their greatest threat. Whispers spread like wildfire through the underground. "He's killing them. The Captain Hydra is hunting Hydra." And for the first time in decades, hope began to stir. Steve Rogers had vanished into the shadows of his own making. He no longer wore the Hydra insignia. The black armor was torn, the shield scarred beyond repair. He moved like a ghost through the ruins, dismantling the very machine he once served. Every base he destroyed brought memories flooding back. The children he'd seen marched in line under Hydra flags, the people executed in the name of order, the cities silenced by his command. Each memory was a wound he couldn't heal. Each life taken, a burden he could never erase. He wasn't Captain Hydra anymore. But he wasn't Captain America either. He was something in between. A soldier, without a flag, a man chasing redemption in a world that no longer believed in it. Hydra's remaining leaders gathered in the heart of their empire, a colossal fortress buried beneath the Alps, powered by stolen Stark technology and guarded by legions of loyal soldiers. There, Zola's digital mind had grown vast, feeding on networks across the planet. He no longer needed bodies. He was everywhere, the omnipresent will of Hydra itself. Zola watched through thousands of eyes as his creation approached. "The prodigal son returns." His synthetic voice echoed across the corridors. "You cannot destroy what you were made to be, Captain. You are Hydra. You always were." Steve walked alone through the halls, shield dragging across the floor, sparks trailing behind him. "No," he said quietly. "I was a man, and you took that from me." Hydra's soldiers opened fire. The air erupted in light and sound, bullets ricocheting, explosions tearing through steel. Steve moved like a storm, shield deflecting, body relentless. Every strike was a release of fury and guilt. He wasn't fighting to win, he was fighting to end. As he reached the central chamber, the holographic visage of Zola flickered into being, a face of static and green light. "You cannot kill an idea, Rogers," Zola hissed. "Hydra is eternal. Cut off one head." Steve threw the shield. It sliced through the projection, embedding itself in the main reactor. "I'm not here to cut off the head," he said. "I'm here to burn the body." The explosion shook the mountain. Flames consumed everything, data, soldiers, the illusion of control. But even as the base crumbled, Zola's voice returned, echoing through the smoke. "You cannot destroy me, Captain. I am inside you. I made you who you are." Steve dropped to his knees, clutching his head as memories collided. Hydra's lies, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s truth, the endless war between what he was and what he'd become. He could feel the remnants of Zola's programming still pulsing through his veins, whispering commands he could no longer obey. Then he heard another voice, faint but clear. "I'm with you till the end of the line. Bucky." Steve lifted his head. Through the collapsing walls, a figure appeared, battered, bleeding, but alive. Bucky had followed him. He pulled Steve to his feet, the two men standing amid the wreckage of Hydra's heart. "You don't have to do this alone," Bucky said. Steve looked at the burning reactor. "This is the only way, Buck. Zola's code isn't just here, it's in me. If I live, Hydra lives." Bucky shook his head, gripping his friend's shoulder. "There's always another way." Steve smiled, a tired, broken smile. "Not this time." He stepped forward, placing the shield into Bucky's hands. The metal was blackened, dented, scarred, a reflection of the man who once carried it. "Make it mean something again," he said. The ground shook as the reactor core overloaded. Bucky reached for him, shouting his name, but Steve was already gone, running into the light, the same way he had all those years ago when he crashed the plane into the ice. The explosion tore through the mountain, a blinding wave of fire and ash rising into the sky. For a moment the world seemed to stop. When the dust settled, Hydra was gone, its armies disbanded, its code wiped from existence, and Steve Rogers was nowhere to be found. Some said he died in the blast. Others claimed to have seen a figure walking through the snow, shieldless, heading toward the horizon. No one knew for certain, but the world began to heal. Slowly, cities reclaimed their skies. Children laughed again in streets that once echoed with silence. The symbol of Hydra was torn down, replaced not by another flag, but by something simpler: hope. Bucky buried the shield at the site of the explosion. He carved no name into the stone, only words. He fought the wrong war, but he never stopped fighting for what was right. Years passed. Legends grew. Some whispered that Steve still lived, wandering from place to place, helping those in need, never revealing his name. Others believed he had finally found peace, not in victory, but in letting go. And yet, sometimes in the quiet of night, soldiers on distant borders claimed to see a shadow moving through the mist, a man carrying no flag, no emblem, only the weight of his past. They said he no longer called himself Captain America, and he would never again be Captain Hydra. He was just Steve Rogers, a man who had seen the world at its best and its worst, and still believed it could be saved. Because even when hope fades, even when the shield falls, the spirit that once carried it never truly dies. And somewhere, in the silence after war, a whisper lingers, soft, unyielding, eternal. "I can do this all day." If you enjoyed this alternative ending story, subscribe for more and don't forget to like this video. It helps us a lot. Thanks for watching. See you on next video.